I think we should open our marriage. Those 7 words hit me harder than anything I'd ever been punched with in my life. I was halfway through brushing my teeth, still in my boxers, the dull morning light just starting to seep through the blinds of our master bedroom. The minty foam in my mouth froze mid-bristle. I turned to look at Madison, my wife of 7 years, standing in the doorway with arms folded, chin lifted like she'd just asked me if I wanted pancakes. You what? I managed, my voice thick with disbelief. She smiled in that way that always used to mean something sweet was coming. But this wasn't sweet. This was a bitter aftertaste I hadn't even swallowed yet. I just think we've grown a little stagnant. Don't you? She said, stepping into the bathroom, casually taking my spot in front of the mirror. This could help us both grow. As individuals. I stood there, toothbrush still in my mouth, staring at her like she'd just told me the earth was flat. She was wearing her robe, the silk one she saved for mornings when she felt particularly sensual, and her blonde hair was pinned back lazily, the way she did when she didn't care, but still looked infuriatingly beautiful. My heart was thudding, not out of desire, out of shock. Grow as individuals? I echoed. She nodded, reaching for her serum, completely unbothered. Yeah, I mean, we got married young, Jake. You've never been with anyone else since college. I've barely. She trailed off, then glanced at me through the mirror. I just think there's more out there, and we could explore it together, but separately. I spit into the sink, rinsed, and stared at myself in the mirror. My face looked pale. Hello. So, you want to have sex with other people? She smirked. That's such a crude way of putting it. How would you put it then? I want freedom. I want us to feel alive again. Alive again. God. That phrase landed like a knife to the ribs. I turned and leaned against the counter, staring at her. And when were you planning on telling me that you're already fucking someone else? The serum bottle froze in her hand. That was the first crack in her polished demeanor. You're projecting, she said quietly. I never said anything like that. But she didn't deny it. I shook my head slowly. Jesus Christ, Madison. And then, something strange happened. A throat cleared, softly, from the hallway. Madison and I both turned toward the door at the same time, and that's when I realized we weren't alone. Madison's younger sister, Riley, was standing there. Her auburn hair was damp from a shower, and she was holding a half-empty coffee mug. She must have just come down from the guest room upstairs. She was supposed to be crashing with us for a few days while she figured out her next move. Riley's eyes flicked between us, then landed hard on Madison. There was a look in them, something between disbelief and disgust. You're unbelievable, Riley muttered, and turned away, stalking back toward the kitchen. Madison sighed. She always dramatizes things. But I wasn't watching her anymore. I was listening to Riley's footsteps, the subtle click of her coffee cup landing a little too hard on the kitchen counter. Madison had just told me she wanted to have sex with other people. And Riley had just told me, without saying a word, that this wasn't a new idea. It was a cover-up, a smokescreen for something that had already been happening behind my back. I turned to Madison slowly, my voice low. How long have you been sleeping with him? Her eyes flashed. Who? Whoever you're already fucking. Don't insult me. For the first time in the conversation, her face faltered. The deflection didn't come fast enough. That's not what this is about, she said instead. But now I knew. I knew. The truth had just cracked through the polished veneer of her voice. She reached for my arm, as if we were just having a lover's quarrel. Jake, you've been working so much. You've been distant. This isn't about cheating. It's about evolution. About pushing boundaries. I pulled my arm away like she'd burned me. Boundaries? I snapped. You already crossed them, Madison. Now you want to write some kind of progressive relationship manifesto to cover your ass? She didn't respond. She just looked at me like I was the unreasonable one. Like I was the one throwing away our marriage. I turned and left the room, heart hammering, ears ringing, barely aware of my own breathing. I found Riley standing at the kitchen sink, staring out the window, her jaw clenched. She didn't say anything as I walked in. Neither did I. I just stood there. Then, finally, she said, quietly, without looking at me. She's been seeing her coworker for months. I turned toward her, stunned. Riley looked over at me. Her eyes were already glassy. I didn't know how to tell you, she whispered. I thought she'd stop. I thought it was just a phase. My world didn't collapse all at once. It cracked. Tiny fractures spiderwebbing through everything I thought was real, everything I thought we'd built. Madison's voice called from upstairs. Let's talk about this like adults, Jake. But all I could hear was Riley's voice. Low. Raw. She laughed about it once, Riley said, her voice bitter. Said you were too naive to even notice. I blinked. Something deep inside me, something foundational, cracked. And in the silence that followed, I understood two things. One, my marriage was already over. And two, Riley knew more than she'd ever planned to say. The kitchen felt too quiet. Riley hadn't moved since she told me. Her hands were gripping the edge of the sink, knuckles white. She looked like she was trying to keep herself together, like if she relaxed even an inch, she'd come apart completely. How long have you known? I asked, voice hoarse. She glanced at me, then away again, like she couldn't stand to see the look on my face. About 6 months. 6 months. 6 months of dinners, family outings, smiling photos, random sex where I thought she was just tired, or busy, or in a phase. 6 months of being lied to while I rubbed her feet on the couch and planned a surprise anniversary trip she didn't even remember to ask about. I sat down at the dining table, hard. The wood groaned under me. Why didn't you tell me? Riley finally turned to face me. Her expression wasn't cold. It was wrecked. Because I wanted to believe it was just a mistake, she said. A one-off. Something she'd confess and fix. And when she didn't, her mouth tightened. Then I realized she wasn't going to. Because she never does. That caught me off guard. What do you mean? She hesitated, like she was chewing glass just thinking about it. Then she sat down across from me, tucked her hair behind her ear, and exhaled like she'd been holding this in for far too long. She's done this before, Riley said. Not just to you. Before college, during college. Madison's always had a way of taking people apart. Quietly. Like pulling threads from a sweater until it falls apart in your hands. I stared at her. She cheated before me? More than once, Riley said bitterly. She got good at hiding it. She made it seem like it was about growth, or freedom, or self-discovery. But it was always the same thing. Someone caught her eye, she gave in, and the person she was with got blindsided. My stomach twisted. Why didn't anyone tell me? She looked me in the eye, and this time, there was no softness left in her. Because you wouldn't have listened. That stung. And worse, it felt true. You were so in love with her, Jake, Riley went on. From the moment you met her. You didn't see the way she flirted with other guys, the way she lied about little things, the way she always had to be in control. She picked you because you were safe, loyal, stable, and she told herself that was enough, until it wasn't. I rubbed my face, jaw tight. My skin felt too hot, my thoughts too loud. Her coworker, I said. Do you know who it is? Riley hesitated again. It's Ryan. That name hit me like a crowbar. Ryan? Ryan Bell? She nodded. Yeah. He's married. Riley shrugged one shoulder. Apparently that's not an issue for either of them. I laughed bitterly. I thought they were just close at work. They are, Riley said. Very close. I caught them once in her car, outside a bar. She told me I misread it. That I was too young to understand grown-up relationships. That sounded like Madison. I sat back in my chair, stunned. So that night, she said she had a late strategy meeting. She was probably with him. She used to come home smelling like a man's cologne, and not the one you wear. The bile crawled up my throat, bitter and sour. I had been so busy trying to be the perfect husband that I ignored every red flag. The longer hours. The sudden, meticulous attention to her appearance. The way she stopped holding my hand in public, like even touching me in front of other people was a chore. She said I was naive. I said out loud, remembering Riley's words. She did, Riley confirmed. Laughed about it. Said you'd probably let her do anything as long as she smiled at you afterward. There was venom in her voice. But it wasn't directed at me. It was years of pent-up anger, sibling anger. The kind that comes from watching someone get away with everything for far too long. I've watched her burn people, Jake, Riley said. Friends, exes, even mom. It's always someone else's fault. Always someone else who's too sensitive or can't keep up with her. But you were good to her. You loved her, and she still threw it away like it was nothing. I looked up at Riley. Her eyes were wet, but hard. She wasn't crying for Madison. She was angry for me. You didn't deserve this, she said quietly. Something tightened in my chest, a knot of grief and gratitude all at once. I thought we were forever, I said, the words raw in my throat. Riley leaned in. You thought she was forever. She's not. You are. You're solid. You're real. She's chaos dressed up in Chanel. I managed a hollow smile. That's a pretty specific insult. She ruined someone I cared about, Riley said. I've had time to think about it. We sat in silence for a long time. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. The soft creak of branches. The sound of my world reassembling itself, slowly, painfully, but with new eyes now. Finally, I looked at her. Thank you, I said. She shook her head. Don't thank me. I should have told you sooner. I didn't protect you. You didn't know me that. Maybe not, she said. But I wanted to. Our eyes met. Something unspoken passed between us. Something I wasn't ready to name. Not yet. But it was there. And it was growing. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Madison's face. The way she said to grow as individuals, with that blank calm like she was asking me to pass the salt. And behind it, Riley's voice. She's been seeing him for months. She laughed about it. Said you were too naive to notice. The rage simmered, but under it was something colder. Something sharper. I wasn't going to yell or scream. I'd done that once, early in our marriage. It solved nothing. This time, I wanted clarity. I needed the truth. It was almost 3 a.m. when I finally climbed out of bed, careful not to wake Madison. She'd fallen asleep with a silk mask over her eyes and one leg draped dramatically over the comforter like she was posing for a sleepwear commercial. I stepped into the hallway, down to my office, and closed the door. There was a file on my laptop I hadn't looked at in years. I used to joke that it was my emergency marriage kit, just old receipts, logins, account records, random backups of phone bills and shared documents. Mostly boring stuff. But now, it was my first breadcrumb. I pulled up our mobile phone records. We were still on a shared plan. Madison liked the family discount. I scrolled. There. Ryan Bell. I'd saved his number years ago when we hosted a work barbecue, and he left his jacket behind. His number showed up a lot. More than mine. Late night calls at 11:22 p.m. Multiple 40-minute convos in the middle of the day. Even one during our anniversary dinner. I remembered she'd gone to the bathroom for a while and claimed she had a weird rash and needed to Google it. I kept scrolling. There were texts, too. Dozens. Hundreds. Some short. Some with timestamps at 1:14 a.m. Who the hell texts their coworker at 1:14 in the morning? I kept digging. Next came the shared calendar we barely used anymore. Madison had stopped putting in appointments a while ago, but I noticed something strange. On 3 separate Fridays, she had blocked off a repeating event labeled Client Follow-Up, NDA. NDA? That was a term she never used. Not in marketing. I clicked into the details. Location, conference room B/offsite possible. I cross-checked those dates with her credit card statements. One stood out, a $142 charge at a boutique hotel downtown, the Langmore. Room service. Champagne. I stared at the screen, chest tightening. It was real. Everything Riley said. Everything I refused to believe. And now, I had proof. I heard a noise behind me and nearly jumped, but it was just the AC kicking on. The silence afterward felt like pressure in my ears. I could have stopped. Could have closed the laptop and gone to bed. But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed her purse from the kitchen table. She'd left it hanging there, same place she always did. I felt a wave of guilt, but it passed. This was mine now. My life. My betrayal. My right to know. I unzipped the side pouch. Nothing unusual. Lipstick, a compact, some receipts. One for groceries. One for a coffee shop. Verve Roasters. Same timestamp as one of those NDA meetings. I looked closer. 2 lattes, extra syrup, 1 almond croissant. Not exactly a business meeting. I kept digging. She'd always been careful. Clever. She deleted texts regularly. But Madison wasn't perfect. She was lazy about her tech. Her old iPad was still synced to her phone. I found it in the storage bin under the coffee table, covered in dust and kids' stickers from when she let our niece play games on it. It took a minute to boot up. No passcode. I opened iMessages. She hadn't updated the sync settings. I felt a strange sense of calm as the messages populated. And then I saw it. Ryan. Still thinking about your mouth last night. That moan when I pulled your hair? Fuck. Madison. You make me feel alive. Like a woman, not just someone's wife. Ryan. I hate when you go home to him. Makes me want to keep you here. Madison. He doesn't suspect anything. He's sweet. Predictable. Safe. You're danger. I want danger right now. That one punched the air out of my lungs. I sat back, staring at the screen, the words etched in a fog I couldn't wipe away. He's sweet. Predictable. Safe. I wasn't even angry yet. I was numb. This was who I had shared a bed with for years. Who I trusted, defended, believed in. The door creaked behind me. I whipped around. It was Riley. She stood in the dim light of the hallway, wearing one of my old hoodies and looking at me like she already knew what I'd found. "You saw it, didn't you?" she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah." She stepped into the room, shutting the door gently behind her. Her eyes went to the iPad. She never learned to delete the backup. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. She said I was predictable. Safe. "You are," Riley said, walking closer. "And that's not a flaw, Jake. That's everything she never deserved." I didn't realize I was shaking until she placed her hand on mine. Her skin was warm, steady, real. "She doesn't get to define your worth," Riley said. "You hear me? She's the liar, not you." For a long time, we just sat there. No words, no plans, just the quiet between two people who had finally stopped pretending. And in that quiet, I felt something shift. The truth didn't break me. It woke me up. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. I told my boss I had a family emergency, which wasn't a lie. My family, the one I thought I had, was on life support, and I wasn't sure if I even wanted to resuscitate it. Madison left early for meetings. No kiss, no breakfast, not even a casual lie to mask her indifference. She was already out the door before I finished pouring my coffee. Maybe she could feel the change in me. Maybe she thought I wouldn't care. She wasn't wrong. By the time Riley walked into the kitchen, still in my hoodie, her hair slightly messy from sleep, I was already replaying every moment from the night before. Every word on that iPad. Every confirmation of what I already feared. "You didn't sleep either, huh?" she asked softly, rubbing her eyes. I shook my head. "Not really the kind of night where you dream." Riley walked over and poured herself a cup of coffee, then leaned against the counter, watching me. There was something new in her eyes. Not pity, not even sympathy. It was steel, cold, protective, and sharp. "I still can't believe how calm you were," she said after a moment. "Most guys would have lost it. Screamed. Punched something." "I wanted to," I admitted. "But what's the point?" She nodded. "Yeah, but part of me wishes you had." I looked up. She took a breath. "I'm sorry. That's not fair. I've hated watching her treat you like this. For years. And now it's out in the open, and she's still walking around like she owns the world." "She thinks I'll roll over," I said, the bitterness sharper now. "That I'll let her keep both lives. Me for stability. Him for fun." "That's how she works," Riley said. "She always gets what she wants. She makes people feel like they're the ones asking too much when they just want honesty." I studied her face. She wasn't just angry for me. This was personal. "What did she do to you?" I asked quietly. Riley hesitated. Then, with a bitter laugh, she sat down across from me. "When I was 20, she said, I was seeing this guy, Nate. He was older, smart, a little intense. Madison met him at a party. She flirted all night, subtle stuff, just enough to make it seem harmless. But I saw it. I told myself I was being paranoid." "What happened?" I asked, though I already knew. "She slept with him. Lied about it. Made me feel crazy when I started to question it." Her voice tightened. She said I was too immature to keep his attention. That maybe it was a lesson in growing up. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "She tore you down," I said. "She made me doubt myself. For years." Riley's knuckles turned white against her coffee mug. And when I finally called her out, she smiled and said, "Riley, you're too emotional. You always take things so seriously." I was quiet. The silence stretched between us like a bridge over fire. "She's hurt a lot of people, Jake," Riley said. "And she never pays the price." I met her eyes. Something passed between us. Something neither of us had said out loud, yet. "So what?" I asked slowly. "Do you think that price should be?" She leaned forward, her voice low and measured. "She wanted an open marriage, right?" she said. "She wanted to grow and explore and find her truth, or whatever self-absorbed bullshit she's preaching now." "Yeah." Riley's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. "Then maybe it's time she learns what it feels like to lose something real." I stared at her. "You're not just talking about revenge." "No," she said, voice soft. "I'm talking about reality. You've been her fallback, her comfort, her quiet little safety net while she runs around pretending to be some unchained goddess. She won't stop, I murmured. Even if I confront her, even if I threaten to leave, she'll cry, make promises, blame stress, and then keep cheating, Riley finished for me. Because she thinks you won't do anything about it. A bitter laugh escaped me. Maybe she's right. I stayed this long. Because you're good, Riley said quickly. Because you believed in her. That doesn't make you weak. It makes her a monster. I exhaled slowly, like the weight of everything was finally pressing into my chest. Part of me still wants to believe she can change, I admitted. Riley's face softened for a moment. And part of you still loves her. Yeah. Then use that, she said. Use it to show her what she lost. Don't beg. Don't grovel. Let her see what it feels like when the man she took for granted becomes someone she can't control. I frowned. What do you mean? Riley tilted her head. Let me ask you something. Okay, if you'd met me first before Madison, do you think you would have fallen for her the same way? The question knocked the air out of my lungs. I don't know. You don't have to answer, she said quickly. I just wanted to plant the thought. Because I know who you are, Jake. I've seen it, even when she didn't. I looked at her for a long time. Her eyes didn't waver. She wasn't seducing me. She wasn't trying to manipulate anything. She was just there. Solid. Fierce. Honest in a way Madison had never been. She's not going to like seeing us close, I said quietly. Riley gave a dry laugh. Good. A pause passed between us. Then I said something that surprised even me. You should stay longer. Riley blinked. Are you sure? Yeah. I mean, until you find your own place. No rush. She smiled, small real. I think I'd like that. We sat in silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled. But deep inside, something else had begun. A shift. A quiet rebellion. A dangerous idea taking root in both of us. Madison wanted an open marriage. She was about to see what that really looked like. It started innocently enough. That's how most dangerous things begin. Riley stayed. First it was one more night. Then the weekend. Then her overnight bag became a suitcase, and her suitcase turned into a drawer in the guest room. We never called it moving in. We didn't need to. The house simply shifted around her, the way homes do when someone belongs there. And weirdly, it felt normal. Madison didn't seem to care at first. Or maybe she didn't notice. Her attention was still consumed by whatever Ryan was doing to keep her spellbound. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, her indifference began to crack. Riley was everywhere now, but not in a loud or intrusive way. She'd hum when she cooked, something soft and low that seemed to soak into the walls. She started helping around the house without asking. Laundry, groceries, little repairs I'd been putting off for months. And she listened. God, did she listen? We'd sit up late some nights, just the two of us at the kitchen table, nursing tea and the kind of exhausted honesty that only came when everything else in your life had burned down. I told her things I hadn't even said out loud to myself. About the way Madison had started flinching when I touched her. About the cold nights spent sleeping inches apart but worlds away. About the empty anniversaries. Riley never tried to fix it. She just sat with me, in it. But the moments, they started to change. One night, I reached across the table for her mug, and our fingers touched. Nothing big, just skin on skin. But she didn't pull away. And neither did I. Another night, she fell asleep on the couch during a movie. Her head rested against my shoulder, her breath slow and steady. I didn't move. I just stayed there, memorizing the weight of that moment. Still, we never crossed the line. Not yet. But it was close. Too close. Then came the pictures. Riley never said a word about them. She just started casually posting again. Instagram. Facebook. Even stories. Nothing provocative, not at first. A shot of us cooking together. Me rolling out pizza dough, flour on my hands. Riley beside me with a glass of red wine and a smile that lit up the frame. A selfie in the backyard while we assembled patio furniture. Her tongue poking out slightly, me mid-laugh. Another from a rainy Sunday. Our feet propped on the coffee table, matching fuzzy socks and mugs in hand. No faces. Just cozy. But the captions? Not all storms are meant to break you. The safest places are sometimes people. You don't rebuild alone. It didn't take long. Madison noticed. She didn't say anything for a few days. But her energy shifted. The usual cold detachment started to ripple with something new. Irritation. Jealousy. And confusion. It was subtle. First, she asked if Riley was planning to get her own place soon. I said I didn't know. Then, she accidentally knocked over a wine glass Riley had just washed and left on the counter. Riley just smirked and wiped it up. But I saw it. I saw everything. Madison, for the first time in months, was unsettled. She couldn't figure out why Riley's presence was bothering her so much. After all, she was the one who wanted space. She was the one who preached growth. But now someone else was filling the air she used to dominate, and not just filling it, improving it. Riley didn't try to argue with her. She just kept being present, confident, kind, and quietly disruptive. Like the time she made dinner, roasted chicken, truffle mashed potatoes, and roasted asparagus. Madison came home, sniffed the air, and said, "That smells rich." Riley smiled without looking up from her plate. "Funny, Jake said it smells like home." Or when Madison wore that skimpy little satin dress before going out with coworkers, Riley barely glanced up from the couch and said, "Bit much for a company dinner, huh?" Madison didn't respond, but her hand tightened around her clutch like she was imagining Riley's throat under it. The power dynamic had changed, and we all felt it. Still, nothing happened between Riley and me. Not yet. But the tension was thick. Electric. Late one night, I passed her in the hallway. I was heading to bed. She was coming out of the bathroom. We stopped for a second. Too close, too quiet. Her hair was damp from a shower, skin flushed, wearing nothing but one of my old tees and boy shorts. I tried not to look. I really tried. But then she looked up at me with those wide green eyes. Her voice, just a whisper. "You okay?" My throat was dry. Trying to be. She nodded. Then, softly, "Let me know if you need anything." The weight behind those words wasn't innocent. She didn't say what anything meant. But I felt it. In my chest. In my spine. In the ache I didn't know how much longer I could ignore. Still, I just nodded and stepped past her. But I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed listening to the rain tapping against the windows, thinking about how different everything felt when Riley was around. How it felt like someone finally saw me. And how Madison, for the first time, was starting to feel what it was like to be replaced. Not just by a fling. Not by some meaningless revenge. But by someone better. Someone real. And the best part? We hadn't even touched. Not yet. But we both knew it was coming. Soon. Madison didn't explode all at once. She cracked in pieces, like a vase tipping off the shelf in slow motion. At first, it was subtle. She came home earlier than usual. Asked if I wanted her to cook something for dinner, despite not having touched a stove in 6 months. She even offered to do laundry. Her doing laundry. The same woman who once said folding towels made her feel like a 1950s housewife. I didn't react. I thanked her, smiled, and returned to the book Riley had lent me. That quiet disinterest? It drove her nuts. She started hovering. Not quite in my space, but close enough to smell her perfume when I walked past. She began asking questions she hadn't bothered with in ages. "How was your day? Did you and Riley cook together again? Are you two watching something new on Netflix?" Each question had a little edge, like she was trying to cut something open. One night, as I was setting plates on the table, Riley was in the kitchen pulling a roast from the oven. Madison leaned against the wall and said, loud enough for both of us to hear, "I feel like I don't even live here anymore." I glanced over my shoulder. "Then maybe it's time you ask yourself why." She blinked. "Excuse me. You said you wanted space?" I replied evenly. "Now you have it." Before she could answer, Riley walked in with the tray and said sweetly, "Dinner's ready. Hope you're hungry." Madison sat at the table, but didn't touch her food. Her eyes never left Riley. It all came to a head the following Friday. Madison walked into the living room wearing a tight black dress she hadn't worn in years. Her makeup was immaculate. Heels, curls, lipstick that was a shade darker than her usual nude gloss. Bold, almost aggressive. I barely looked up from the couch. Riley was sitting beside me, both of us sipping wine while watching some old noir movie. "You're going out?" I asked flatly. Madison smiled like a dagger. "Just drinks. Ryan and a few from the office." I nodded. "Have fun." She hesitated. "You're really okay with that?" "Why wouldn't I be?" She didn't answer. But she didn't leave either. Instead, she walked over to where Riley and I sat and planted herself right in front of the TV. "You know," she said, "Riley, I've been meaning to talk to you." Riley looked up, calm as ever. "About what?" Madison folded her arms. "Boundaries." I felt Riley shift beside me. She didn't tense, but something in her posture changed. Interesting, Riley said, setting her glass down. Didn't realize I was crossing any. Madison's eyes flicked to me, then back to her sister. You've been spending a lot of time with Jake. We live in the same house, Riley replied. It's kind of unavoidable. Madison tilted her head. You think that doesn't look strange? You parading around in his clothes. Posting photos. Cooking meals together? Strange to who? To anyone, Riley. You're my sister. Riley smiled, and this time, there was heat beneath it. Exactly. Your sister. Which means I've known who you are a hell of a lot longer than Jake has. Maybe that's the problem. Madison's jaw twitched. You think you're better than me? No, Riley said. But I know I'd never treat someone I loved like a doormat. Madison's eyes narrowed. Be careful. Or what? Riley shot back. You'll cheat on me too? Silence slammed into the room. Madison went still. Her mouth opened, then closed. And that's when I made the mistake of laughing. Just a quiet exhale, but enough. She turned to me like I'd just slapped her. Is this funny to you? She snapped. No, I said. But it's the first honest moment I've seen between you two in years. Madison's eyes burned. So what, Jake? You're just done with us? Just moving on with my sister now? You moved on first, I said calmly. You just expected me to stay frozen while you explored your freedom. I didn't think you'd stoop to this, she hissed. Stoop? Riley echoed, standing now. He's not stooping, Madison. He's healing. With you? Madison barked. Don't act like this is noble. You've always wanted what I had. Riley didn't flinch. No, I wanted what you never appreciated. I stood too, not out of anger, just to end it. Madison, I said, voice quiet. Maybe this is the first time someone's shown you what consequences look like. Her face twisted, some horrible mix of guilt and rage and disbelief. I made one mistake. It wasn't one, I cut in. And you didn't just betray me. You disrespected me. Over and over. The tension in the room was nuclear. Madison stepped back like the floor was falling from under her. You're choosing her, she said. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, heels clicking like gunshots. At the threshold, she spun around. This isn't over. Riley didn't even look at her. It is for us. And with that, Madison slammed the door behind her. The silence afterward was deafening. I looked at Riley. She was still standing, chest rising and falling. I'm sorry, I said. Why? She asked. You shouldn't have had to take that. She turned to me, then, eyes bright, but unbroken. I didn't do it for you, she said. I did it because someone needed to finally call her out. And I was tired of pretending she hadn't broken every good thing she ever touched. I nodded. Then, after a long pause, I asked quietly, would you have said all that if I wasn't standing there? Riley looked at me. I'd have said it louder. The house felt different after Madison's outburst. Lighter, quieter, like a storm had finally passed through and taken the humidity with it. She didn't come home that night. No call, no message. And for once, I didn't care. I sat on the couch after dinner, a beer in my hand, the television on but muted. Riley was in the kitchen, cleaning up, her bare feet quiet against the tile. The clink of plates, the rush of the faucet. It all felt so domestic, so intimate without trying to be. We hadn't spoken much since Madison left. Not because there was nothing to say, but because we both knew exactly what was coming. I heard Riley sigh, soft and tired. She stepped into the living room, drying her hands with a dish towel, her hair pulled into a loose bun, a little piece falling down near her cheek. She wore one of my old flannels over a tank top and shorts, and something about the way she looked in my clothes made it hard to breathe. She didn't sit on the other side of the couch like usual. She sat right next to me, close enough that I could feel the heat from her legs against mine. Neither of us said anything for a while. Then she spoke. Jake, she began, voice soft. I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you react, okay? I nodded slowly. Okay. Riley stared down at her hands for a moment before looking up. I've cared about you for a long time. Way before all of this. Not in a weird or inappropriate way. I respected your marriage. I stayed out of it. Even when I saw her hurting you. Even when I wanted to scream at her for being blind to you. I didn't move. Didn't even blink. Riley continued. But then I saw how you loved her. How patient you were. How consistent. And I realized it wasn't about who she was. It was about who you are. And I think that's when I started falling for you. My throat tightened. She pressed on. I never planned for this. I never thought I'd be here with you. In this house. After that woman tossed you aside like you were something to grow out of. But Jake, I see you. I see everything she missed. And I'm sorry it took this much pain for us to end up here. I looked at her, really looked at her. Eyes wide, voice trembling, heart on her sleeve. And I realized I wasn't shocked. Somewhere, I had always known. Maybe not consciously, but I had felt it in the way she spoke to me. The way she leaned in when I talked. The quiet glances. The loyalty. The way she had stood beside me when even my wife hadn't. I set my beer down. Riley, I said carefully. I know, she interrupted. You're married. You're still healing. And if you don't feel the same, I'll walk away from this before it ever becomes something we regret. I couldn't keep pretending like I didn't feel it anymore. The silence stretched between us like a thread pulled too tight. Then I exhaled. I do feel it. Her eyes widened. You do? I nodded slowly. I didn't want to. I tried so hard not to. But the more time we spent together, the more I realized something. You're not a distraction from the pain. You're the reason it doesn't feel unbearable anymore. A soft, almost stunned breath escaped her lips. I kept going. You listened when she didn't. You stayed when she left. You looked at me like I mattered, not like I was some background character in my own life. And every night I spend sitting next to you, I feel more like myself than I have in years. Riley didn't say anything at first. She just reached out, slowly, like she was afraid I might pull away. Her hand brushed the side of my face, fingers tracing the curve of my jaw. And when I didn't flinch, when I leaned into her touch, she moved closer. Our foreheads touched. Her breath mingled with mine. Are you sure? She whispered. No, I whispered back. But I want to be. Then we kissed. It wasn't rushed or messy or desperate. It was relief. It was permission. Her lips were soft and slow against mine, like we were reading a language neither of us had dared speak before. Her hand slid into my hair. Mine found her waist, her back, the warmth of her spine. When we pulled apart, we both just sat there for a moment, breathing. I shouldn't feel this good, I murmured. But it does, she said. Doesn't it? I nodded. She smiled, resting her head against my shoulder. I'm not asking you to love me right now, she said. I just want to be the one who reminds you what it feels like to be loved. And God help me. I believed her. We didn't go to bed together that night. We didn't rush. We just curled up on the couch, limbs tangled, hearts open, the soft flicker of the TV casting shadows on the wall. But a line had been crossed. Not in shame, not in vengeance, in something real, something we both needed. And as I held her, felt the steady rhythm of her breath against me, I realized something else. Madison had wanted an open marriage, but what she opened was a door she could never close again. Because the man who once belonged to her was already halfway gone. We didn't call it an affair. Not at first. There was no sneaking around, no secret hotels or whispered phone calls. But there was secrecy. It was in the way our eyes lingered too long in the kitchen. The way our hands touched for a second too long when passing a glass. The way Riley's hoodie smelled more like me than her now. But we weren't hiding out of shame. We were hiding from her. Madison. She came home less frequently now, her open marriage in full swing. She didn't care where I was on weeknights. Never asked who I was with or if dinner had been made. The only time she showed emotion was when she saw Riley's name pop up on Instagram next to mine. That's when the text started. Madison, your sister's getting really comfortable in my house. Madison, are you two playing house or just pathetic? Madison, tell her to back off before this gets ugly. I didn't respond. Not to one of them. She wanted me to chase. To beg. I didn't. Because in private, something real had bloomed between Riley and me. The first time we slept together wasn't planned. It happened on a rainy Saturday night. I'd been working on the deck, fixing a railing that had been loose since spring. Riley brought me a beer, barefoot in a hoodie, her hair down and wild from the wind. You always look good when you're dirty, she teased, eyes glinting. Careful, I said. You keep saying stuff like that, and I'll never finish this deck. Then don't, she said. I looked at her. She didn't look away. And just like that, the distance disappeared. We didn't stumble into it like something forbidden. We chose it. Clothes peeled off slowly, like layers we'd both been dying to shed. Her skin was soft and warm under my hands, her mouth hungry and patient at the same time. When she moaned my name, low, like a secret she'd been dying to say, I felt something crack wide open inside me. It wasn't just sex. It was recognition. a meeting point between grief and want and long-starved affection. After, we lay tangled together on the old couch in the guest room, limbs heavy, the air thick with the scent of sweat and something sweeter. She looked at me like I was something worth choosing, not settling for, not tolerating, choosing, and I'd never felt that before. After that night, we were careful. Riley still slept in the guest room most nights, even though we both knew how hard it was to part ways at the door. In public, we kept things friendly but distant. But behind closed doors, it was magnetic, addictive, like we were finally making up for lost time. And for me, it healed something. Every time Riley touched me, it stitched a little piece of me back together. The man I'd buried under years of quiet disappointment began to breathe again, laugh again, want again. It scared me how natural it felt. One morning, we stood in the kitchen. She was making coffee, and I walked up behind her, wrapped my arms around her waist, and rested my chin on her shoulder. I forgot what this felt like, I murmured. She turned slightly. What? This, I said, waking up and not feeling like I'm bracing for another day of being ignored. She turned in my arms, her hand resting over my heart. I'll never make you feel invisible, she whispered. I believed her, and that's when I knew it wasn't just a fling. I loved her. It crept in without fanfare, without fireworks. Just a steady flame that had been lit the moment she chose to stand beside me while everything else was falling apart. But of course, Madison could feel it. She didn't know exactly what was happening, not yet. But she sensed the shift. The way I didn't flinch anymore when she entered the room. The way Riley didn't bother hiding her smirks when Madison tried to assert control. One night, Madison came home early and found us on the back porch. We were just talking, nothing inappropriate. But Riley was laughing, and I was leaning in close, my hand on her thigh without realizing it. Madison's eyes narrowed. She didn't say anything, just stood there, watching. Then she turned and went inside without a word. Later that night, she slammed doors, stomped around upstairs, left again without explanation. And still, I didn't follow. She'd told me she wanted freedom. Now she had it. But what she hadn't counted on, what she never expected, was that I'd use that same freedom to choose someone else. Someone better. Someone who saw me. She kept Ryan. I had Riley. Only difference? My affair had a future. Hers was just an escape. It was bound to happen eventually. A storm like this doesn't just hover overhead forever. It breaks. And Madison? She didn't just break. She erupted. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because I was making breakfast, and Riley was sitting on the counter in pajama shorts and one of my t-shirts, her hair messy, a cup of coffee in her hands, looking like something out of a dream I hadn't dared admit was real until now. We weren't trying to hide anymore, not completely. We still didn't kiss in front of Madison. We didn't need to. The air between us was thick enough, tense enough, real enough. And that morning, it all came to a head. The front door burst open like a bomb going off. Madison walked in with a fury I hadn't seen in her since the day she found out her favorite boutique had closed without notice. Except this wasn't about clothes. This was about control. She froze when she saw Riley on the counter, my hand resting on her bare thigh. The mug in her hand clattered to the floor. Are you fucking serious? Madison spat. Riley slid off the counter slowly. Calm. Like she'd been expecting this. Madison's eyes burned through me. You're screwing my sister in my kitchen? I didn't flinch. It hasn't been your kitchen for a long time. Her mouth dropped open. You smug little. Don't, Riley said sharply. Madison turned on her. What, now you talk? Thought you were just going to silently crawl into my life like a damn parasite? Riley crossed her arms. Funny. That's what people said after you wrecked their lives. Madison's laugh was wild, unhinged. You always wanted what I had. This isn't about him. It's about me. You couldn't stand being the little sister forever, so you took the one thing I never thought you'd touch. I stepped between them. You threw it away, Madison. She turned to me. So you admit it? You're with her? I met her eyes. Yes, I am. Her face twisted. You're disgusting. Riley's voice cut through the room. He's honest. Something you wouldn't recognize if it slapped you. Madison spun on her. You bitch. And that's when Riley snapped. No, she said, stepping closer. Not this time. You don't get to spin this. Not again. I've watched you ruin good people for years, Madison. You lie. You cheat. You play victim. And then you move on like nothing happened while the rest of us pick up the pieces. Madison's lip curled. You don't know anything. I know exactly what you are, Riley growled. You told me Jake was a safety net, that he was sweet, loyal, and boring. And you laughed while you fucked someone else behind his back. Madison turned red. That was none of your business. He's my family, Riley snapped. He is my business. And for the first time, Madison looked afraid. Not of us. Of the truth. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was a mirror held up to her face, and she didn't like what she saw. You don't love him, she said suddenly. You just wanted to beat me. Riley blinked. I do love him. The words hit me like a wave. Not because I didn't already feel it, but because she said it out loud, in front of her. And Madison? She broke. She lunged toward Riley, hand raised, but I caught her wrist midair. Don't, I said, voice low. Controlled. Don't make this uglier than it already is. Her lip trembled. She yanked her hand away. Then she looked at me, really looked. And I saw it. Not regret. Not heartbreak. Rage. Because I had stopped being hers. Because I had chosen someone else. Because her open marriage didn't come with an open exit. She turned to Riley one last time. You'll never be me. Riley smiled. Thank God. Madison left that morning. For good. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. She'd spent so long treating me like an accessory to her chaos. Now, she had to watch me walk away from it. And for the first time in years, I felt clean. Later that night, I stood on the porch with Riley. She leaned against the railing, her arms folded across her chest, the wind tugging at her hair. You okay? I asked. She nodded slowly. I am now. I took her hand. You meant it, didn't you? What you said. She turned to me, eyes soft. Every word. I love you too, I said quietly. And just like that, something solid clicked into place. Not out of revenge. Not out of anger. But out of choice. Because Madison's final betrayal wasn't walking out. It was thinking I'd never survive without her. And she was dead wrong. It didn't take long for the family to find out. Madison didn't go quietly, and she sure as hell didn't go alone. Within a week of leaving, she'd rewritten the entire narrative and handed out copies like it was gospel. According to her version, I had been emotionally distant for years. She claimed she suggested the open marriage out of desperation to save us, and I'd responded by seducing her vulnerable little sister. She painted Riley as a manipulative snake, a seductress who pounced the moment our relationship hit turbulence. And me? I was the fool, the coward, the husband who didn't fight for his wife but ran straight into the arms of her blood. What she didn't expect was that no one believed her. Not this time. Her parents, usually quick to defend her, sat us down a few days after the blow-up. Riley was nervous. She always was around them. But I saw her steady herself as they asked what happened. We told them the truth. We didn't embellish. We didn't dramatize. We laid it out. The affair, the lies, the manipulation, and eventually, the connection that formed between two people who were simply there for each other when it all came crashing down. Madison's father sat in silence for a long time. Then he looked at Riley and said, I've seen Madison break good people before. I just never thought she'd do it to family. Riley's eyes welled up. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. His voice cracked with something close to shame. Not toward us. Toward her. It wasn't just our side of the family, either. Her cousins. Friends. Even her co-workers began to whisper. Turns out Ryan, her so-called danger, had a wife of his own. And that wife had receipts. Screenshots. Emails. Venmo transfers for hotel rooms and flowers. Madison didn't just get exposed, she got dismantled. She tried to spin it. Claimed she was a free spirit trapped in a cold marriage. That she was embracing her sexual truth. But no one bought it. Not when her truth came at the cost of every person who had ever loved her. Meanwhile, Riley and I stopped pretending. We were done playing coy. We held hands in public. Took photos together. Attended family events side by side. And for every awkward glance or whispered comment, we had twice as many people pulling us aside saying, it makes sense now. I see it. And God, it did make sense. The way Riley would glance at me mid-conversation and smile like she already knew what I was thinking. The way I'd reach for her hand without even noticing. The way we fit. Effortlessly. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. There were moments. Quiet ones. When guilt would creep in. When I'd think about how I got here. The wreckage it took to arrive at this peace. But Riley always pulled me out of it. This isn't about revenge, she'd whisper, curled against my chest. It's about finding something worth keeping. And that's what she became for me. Not a rebound. Not a rebellion, but a home. The biggest surprise came 2 weeks later. Madison showed up at our doorstep. Unannounced. Uninvited. I opened the door, and there she stood. No makeup, hair tied back, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. Riley stayed inside. She didn't need to hear this. Not again. Madison looked at me for a long time, like she was searching for something. Maybe the old version of me, the one she could bend, the one who'd beg to fix it. But I wasn't that man anymore. "You look different," she said. "I am different." She nodded, then glanced at the house. "Are you happy?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Madison swallowed hard. "Did you ever love me?" I didn't say no. I said I did. "But love doesn't survive in lies, Madison." She looked down. "He left me, you know." "Ryan." She nodded. "His wife found everything. He went back to her. Said I was a mistake." I didn't respond. "Everything's falling apart," she whispered. "And you just moved on." "I had to," I said. "You left me long before you ever walked out that door." Her eyes filled, and for a moment, I thought she might apologize. But instead, she said, "You'll get bored. She's younger, sure, but she's not me." And that was the moment I realized Madison still didn't get it. She thought she was irreplaceable, that no matter how much damage she caused, no one could ever walk away. I leaned in slightly and said, "Exactly. She's not you. And that's why I'll never let her go." Madison's face went pale. She didn't say goodbye. She just turned and walked down the steps, back into whatever version of the world she'd shattered for herself. And I walked back inside. Riley was in the kitchen, barefoot, stirring something on the stove. She looked up, and I saw the flicker of worry cross her face. "Everything okay?" I walked over, pulled her into my arms, kissed her forehead. "Better than okay." She leaned into me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "She tried, didn't she?" "She always does." "And she failed." Riley smiled softly. "Good." We didn't speak about Madison after that. There was no need. She'd burned every bridge, lost her affair partner, destroyed her reputation. And in the end, all her manipulation, all her lies, all her games couldn't stop what was real. Because love doesn't come from control. It doesn't come from power or fear or the ability to twist someone into silence. It comes from seeing someone, staying, choosing. And for once, I'd been chosen back. Unapologetically, completely. And I wasn't giving that up for anyone. Not even the woman who used to be my wife. The divorce was finalized on a quiet Tuesday morning. No courtroom. No dramatic last-minute objections. Just 2 signatures, a tired notary, and a legal end to something that had emotionally died long before the ink dried. Madison didn't show. She sent her lawyer. And honestly, I was relieved. There wasn't anything left to say. No pleas. No apologies. No backward glances. Just a clean break from the woman I once thought I'd grow old with, and the final nail in the coffin of the life I thought I wanted. After it was over, I stepped outside the courthouse, took a long breath, and felt the tension lift from my shoulders like fog burning off in the morning sun. Riley was waiting in the car. When I slid into the passenger seat, she looked at me with a quiet kind of worry. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think I really am." We didn't celebrate that night. There was no champagne, no dancing, no ceremonial tossing of rings. Instead, we made dinner together. Nothing fancy, just roasted chicken, potatoes, and wine. We ate barefoot in the kitchen, music playing low in the background, laughter bubbling between us like it always did. And after dinner, I pulled her into my arms and kissed her like it was the first time all over again. Because in many ways it was. This was the start of something new. Not born from pain or betrayal, but from healing, from choice. We took things slow, on purpose. We didn't rush to label everything, didn't post every photo or tell every friend. We just lived. We spent weekends hiking or curled up on the couch with blankets and tea. Riley started painting again. I started writing again. We built routines around each other, not out of obligation, but comfort. Some people still whispered. A few friends chose sides, usually hers. But the ones who mattered? They saw. They saw the way Riley looked at me like I was the only thing in the room. They saw the way I touched her like I couldn't believe she was real. They saw the way we smiled when we didn't know anyone was watching. And slowly, the whispers stopped. Even Madison stopped trying. She called once, just once, 2 months after the divorce. Said she wanted to talk. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was shaky. I made a mistake, she said. I thought I wanted freedom. I thought you'd wait for me to figure things out. But you didn't. And now, I don't know who I am without you. I didn't reply, because I finally knew who I was. And I wasn't hers anymore. A few weeks later, Riley and I went on a weekend trip to the coast. Just the two of us. We stayed in a tiny cabin overlooking the cliffs, waves crashing below like something out of a dream. One night, wrapped in blankets beside a fire, she turned to me and said, I never wanted to steal you from her. I know, I said. She hesitated. But I did fall in love with you while you were still hers. And sometimes I wonder if that makes me the bad guy in someone else's story. I reached over, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. You didn't steal me, I said. You found me. When I was lost. When I didn't even know how to ask for help. You didn't take what wasn't yours. You just reminded me I deserved more than being forgotten. She nodded, and in that moment, I saw the last of her guilt fall away. We weren't perfect. We never claimed to be. But we were honest. And in a world full of false starts and broken promises, that was everything. Months passed. Then a year. We moved into a new place, together this time. A little fixer-upper with a yard full of weeds and a porch that creaked when you stepped just right. We built something new there. Not a rebound. Not revenge. Home. And one morning, while planting tomatoes in the backyard, Riley looked up at me with dirt on her cheeks and sun in her eyes and said, I never thought I'd be happy like this. I smiled, dropped to one knee in the garden, and pulled a small, dusty box from my pocket. She gasped. Riley, I said, I don't care how we got here. I'm just glad we are here. And I want to keep building this life with you, one broken piece at a time. Will you marry me? She didn't even let me finish the question. She tackled me into the dirt, laughing, crying, nodding. And in that moment, surrounded by soil and sunlight and second chances, I realized something. Madison hadn't just lost me. She lost the version of me she never really saw. The man who could love, fully, fiercely, endlessly. And now, that man belonged to someone who had loved him before he even knew how to love himself.